Hello, hello. I think we are live. I'm never gonna get used to this. I don't think I will ever get used to this. I hope it's working. Can anyone tell me? Yes, no, is it working? I think it is. Okay, let's see. How's everyone doing today? All good? Thank you for joining me today. Today is going to be an amazing one. We're going to be talking about a very, very nice subject. And I've been having a lot of comments about this subject, a lot of questions. And this is why I decided today that I am going to talk about this. So excuse the little bit of a mess, but because I'm on Zoom, at the same time, I'm on Facebook. And it's a bit. Thank you, Tanika. Thank you for letting me know. It's amazing to have you guys here. I'm so glad to be here with you today. Last week, it was a replay. So today I'm here live. I just finished a very small meditation that I do every day. I try to do it as much as possible because it's a meditation for abundance. Maybe one day I'm just going to share it with you on the group. So hopefully we'll do that soon, maybe in a couple of weeks. So today we're going to be together for around an hour as usual. And the topic that we're going to be talking about today is really very, very interesting. I remember I used to take this topic a lot when I was a kid. I used to learn about this, like not really a kid, in my teenage, like the last two years in school, or maybe probably the last year of school. I remember that we used to take a course called psychology. And in that course, we used to take like information and we used to learn about the mind and the subconscious mind and how we come to this earth and how our subconscious mind or our mind in general, when we arrive here, is we call it a tabula rasa. Tabula rasa means a blank slate. So today we're going to be talking about that, and stick to the end, because at the end of this live, at the end of this coaching, I have an invitation for you. So stay with me and we'll see about that invitation. So I remember when I was a kid, unfortunately, I was born in a house where my mother was very abusive. And unfortunately, my father was he was there, he's still there, but like never interfering or never being present in anything that was happening for us as we were kids. And I say happening for us because if you've met me before, I always believe that everything happens for us in our lives, nothing happens to us. So whatever happens through our life is always happening for our own good. Sometimes we don't really see it that way, but as we grow and as we become adults, if we just go backwards in our life and start looking back on our life, on our everything about how we lived and everything about how we grew, we will realize that everything that we've been through in our life has taught us something, has given us a specific reason to be the person who we are today, or has shaped our life to be the way it is today. And this is why I always say nothing ever happens to us, everything happens for us, even when we are kids. So going back to my childhood and going back to where I was as a child and how I was raised as a child. So I remember when I was a kid, there were things, like very specific things, like any other kid, there are things that you don't like to eat, there are things that you don't like to do, there are people that you don't like to see. So I remember as a kid, I was always that person who would be, um, maybe sometimes not wanting to eat something specific, or just not wanting to go and visit the neighbors, or not wanting to go and maybe visit my grandmother or my aunts or my nephews or my nieces. So it was always not nephews, nieces, cousins, basically. I didn't have nephews and nieces then. So it was always something that I was supposed to do as a child, and I wasn't really keen on doing. And the way my mother would, force things on me was always through scolding or cursing or using really bad words or emotionally being abusive, or even hitting me sometimes, slapping me on the face or threatening me with weird stuff. So that was kind of how my childhood was on any level, not just when I was going to eat, or if I wanted to eat, and if she wanted to feed me and I wasn't happy with the food, or anything that we were going to do, whether it was me or my siblings, we were all being treated the same way. It's not like she was favoring one of us over the other. No, we were all subject to her abuse and her, the way she knew how to deal with us as kids. And today, if I go back, I mean, I really don't blame her, but I do understand, that all of this has shaped everything about who I am today. And let me tell you how. So I remember many times when she would be wanting to feed me stuff, something that I don't like, or something that I'm not happy to eat. She would always tell me stuff like, you have to eat, and I'm doing this because I love you, and I'm forcing you to eat so that you grow, and I'm only doing this because I love you. That word, because I love you, as I was being force-fed as a kid, almost shaped every single relationship that I had in my life. And I'm not talking about love relationships only. I'm talking about every relationship. So for me, as I was a kid, the way she was raising me and the way she was implementing those ideas in my mind kept me always thinking that to feel love and to be loved, I have to go through that hardship. I have to go through that pain. I had to go through that, force or something that it doesn't come to me easily to be loved and to feel loved, or to even feel love towards anyone. So that when I started working on myself and when I started becoming the person who I am today, I remember the first thing that crossed my mind was, why is it that every time I have a relationship, or every time that I want to be with someone, or every time that I meet new people, I have to feel like inferior? I have to feel like they need to show me some sort of superiority, or some sort of, what do you call it? Like they control me, so that I allow myself to feel anything, whether love, be it love or anything else. So when I started working on myself, I was wondering, why is it that I was doing all of this? And I had always been aware, when I was a kid, I had always been aware that something is not right. But as a kid, it's not easy for us to make the changes that we want to change, especially because we're not eloquent enough and we don't have the right words to say the things that we want to say. And we're not at a level, when we are kids, we're basically depending on what we get from our parents or what we get from our surrounding. And as kids, we are always looking at our parents as they are the role models for us. They are the people that we want to be like, the people that we want to follow. And when we are born in a household that has got a lot of negativity and that has got a lot of abuse, we sort of, as kids, we sort of associate this with how things should be, or with how things are going to be for us in our life. And we sort of accept this as kids because this is like, we don't know better. This is what we know. This is what we've been raised with. This is what we've been accustomed to, you know, and this is what we've been simply conditioned to, you know. Now, if I mentioned at the beginning that when I was learning about psychology long time ago, like literally when I was in my, I think I was 17 years old, when I first, you know, understood a little bit what psychology means and how psychology works. And I understood that when we arrive to this place, when we are born, our mind is literally an empty slate. There's nothing on it. It's like, instead of this, we have a whiteboard. It's literally a whiteboard. And then as we go through life, what happens is we start absorbing things from the environment. We start absorbing things from our parents, from our friends, from school, from what we learn in school, like the teachings, and also from the teachers and the students and everything that we go through in our life. So we start absorbing all of this. And that whiteboard starts getting populated with ideas, with habits, with beliefs, with information that we are getting literally from outside. Some of these information are exactly what we learn in our childhood, from the age of 2 to 7 mainly, and even before. But I mean, these are the years where we really are absorbing everything that we have, or that we see around us, or everything that we go through. And for me, for example, the fact that I was being force-fed when I was a kid, and the fact that I was being told that, you know, I'm doing this because I love you. For me, love became something that has to come with pain. Love and pain were an association that only later on in my life, like few years ago, had I realized that, you know, to feel love, I don't have to go through pain. I don't have to be that person who's always in pain, who's always begging for that affection, because this is what I used to do when I was a kid. This is what I used to do when I was a child. And I thought that this is the way love is. I thought that this is what love is all about, because that's how I was raised, because that's how I I went through my childhood. Another thing that just comes to my mind now is, because I always talk about my mom, and I always say that, you know, my mom, God bless her, but this is who she is. She's been through a lot, I'm sure, and she took us with her through a lot. And I'm so happy that at one point in time I realized this, and I you know, I stood up and I decided that I'm not going to take this anymore as my conditioning. And I decided that I'm not going to live with that sort of conditioning. I'm going to go against it, and I'm going to fix it for myself. And by fixing it for me, I know that I am fixing it for so many people around me, especially my siblings, because that's how it works. You know, when you're living your life, and anything that you do for yourself, you will see when you start working on yourself, you will see that it will start affecting everyone around you in your entourage, everyone around you in your family who is close to you will start getting affected by the changes that you are doing for yourself. Now, when I started doing that work, I also remembered, now that it's coming to me as well, that my mom was not the only one to be blamed here. My mom was doing her best with whatever she could. And so was my father, but also my father was very distant, was very away. I never, like, I remember that I never heard um, a, a word of affection coming from him to me as a child, you know, like holding me and telling me that he loves me, or holding me and telling me that I am the best thing that ever happened to him in his whole life. I never had that as a child. And because I never had that as a child, and this is how much my childhood had affected my adulthood, I was always either looking for someone who would give me that affection, or I would be looking for that person who would, you know, kind of repeating everything that I know about my life, which doesn't make sense, right? If we are smart human beings, and when we are smart, we know that this is not the kind of life that we want, but because this has been so rooted inside our subconscious mind, because this is how we were raised, because this is how we went through all of our childhood this way, changing it, like, as we grow, takes work. It doesn't just happen like that. And a lot of us are not lucky enough to realize that there are things about us that we can change, even if we have been through a lot through our lives. There are a lot of people who don't really believe that they have that power, that this is something that they can do, that this is something that they can certainly fix about their lives, their current lives. Because obviously, what has happened before is impossible to change. And what's coming next is unknown. So, as I always say, the only time that we really have to work with is the now, is what we are going to do about it now, how we choose to live our life now. And that's how it's very important. I'm just looking at the points so that I don't forget what I really, really want to focus on. So that's why it's very important today, when you sit with yourself, ask yourself these questions. How did my childhood look like? What was happening with me as a child? And if you don't remember, just take a breather, just take a deep breath in and close your eyes and just sit there. Just sit there, and you will see that those images will come to you, those ideas, those words. Sometimes you will remember very vividly the things that used to happen. And sometimes, because especially if we have been traumatized as kids, what happens is that we tend to cover those traumatic experiences, and we tend to push them as far as deep as possible so that we don't really have to remember them. And that's why it's very important to go back to your childhood, to go back to where everything started molding for you when you arrived on this planet. And sitting with yourself and taking that time to reflect and to wait for answers, and the answers will come to you, I assure you. You just want to sit and ask. And the best way to do it is to take incidents from your life currently, things that are happening with you. Like for me, when I started questioning because I was every time I would be in a relationship, not just a relationship with a man who would be my partner. I'm talking about friends even. I would always be either taken for granted or abused or emotionally abused, especially emotionally, even from close friends to me, people who I thought were like the world, they meant the world to me. And I trusted them so blindly, and yet they were in my life causing me emotional abuse, causing me mental abuse, you know? So it's not only about just the person that you want to be with, that special person, it's about everything that you go through. So when you start going through your current life, so that's the exercise, right? You go through your current life and you see in your current life what is happening. What are the things that are like causing you to question? What are the things that are giving you like some sort of an alarm? Sit with yourself and check those incidents and those experiences and see how those experiences are similar to things that you have been through as a child. Like for me, when I, in every relationship that I have, especially with partners now, I'm talking, I was always looking for that person who would show me love and affection, yes, but there was always some sort of an abuse in that relationship. And that abuse used to be in the form of either betrayal or nonchalance, which is what my father used to treat me, like how my father used to treat me, or used to treat the whole situation of my childhood as as a child. Um, Things like, not listening to me, and always being that authoritative person without being authoritative, kind of like my mom in a way, or someone who would be abusive, or someone who would play the victim all the time, because that would be my mom. It's like I am manifesting having that same relationship over and over and over and over again. It doesn't make sense, right? You would think it doesn't make sense. And I thought it didn't make sense until I started working on myself. And then I realized why I was doing this. I was doing this so that I can get to a point to see that, hey, this is what's happening. And you need to wake up and you need to figure it out. And you need to get out of that dynamics of having relationships done in that way, just because as a child, this is how you grew up. This is what you learned. This is what was being conditioned in you. This is how you were conditioned throughout your childhood. And then you take that with you and you start living your life with that as the core, or at the basis of everything else that you go through in your life. So the fact that I was going through all of these was just kind of like a culmination to the point of, okay, now I have to wake up and now I have to do something about it. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of you out there go through this all the time. Maybe not the same way as I have been through it. Maybe not in the same dynamics. Maybe your mother was not abusive, but your father was. Or maybe none of them was abusive, but they were both very distant and they did not know how to show you love, or they did not know how to, make you feel like you are the center of their world. Because this is, as kids, when we come to this planet, we think that these people are going to give us unconditional love and this is how it's supposed to be. But when it doesn't happen, And we learn things differently about love, about care, about how the relationship between a parent and a child should be. Imagine that this is how you are learning everything as a kid. And look at your life today and see how much of this you are still carrying in your life. And you will understand then how much your childhood affects everything that you do in your life. That's number one. So all you need to do is, this is your exercise, or this is something that you can do to figure out how much you are still carrying from your childhood, and what are the things that you are able to change. And I can tell you from my experience, personally, I believe that there's nothing that you cannot change. I personally believe that everything is changeable. Everything can be changed. The most important thing is that you would want it to change, and you are ready to take that change on board, and you are ready to take that mission, because it is a mission. When we start working on ourselves, it's a mission. It's a mission that we're doing this to grow. We're doing this to become the best version of who we already are. And like I always say, we're all good people. We just go through bad circumstances. We just go through bad experiences. And those experiences are happening for us to teach us specific things. Many of them, they start in our childhood. Some of them, maybe we even inherit them. Some traits that we have, maybe they don't even come from our childhood. Maybe they are inherited from either our mother's family line or our father's family line or our ancestors. And a lot of things that we go through in our life, even as children, this thing is so complex and it's so intertwined to the point that really you cannot think of something separately from another. Like even as kids, when we are born in a very specific place, in a very specific society, let's say, there are things that we learn from our parents as children, but there are things that we learn or that we are exposed to because of where we are born, because of where we live, because of the entourage, because of the surrounding, because of the environment that we live in, because of the society that we are born in. And a lot of the things, a lot of the beliefs that we end up carrying as adults are formed in our childhood. That's true, but they are also formed in our childhood because of societal constraints or societal issues or societal beliefs and forms and habits. So a lot of the things that we go through, not only as grown-ups, but also as children, especially as children, actually, because this is how we get conditioned. It starts with us when we are children, and then we grow with it. And as we grow with those limitations, I call them limitations because they are literally limiting us in our life. Not only now, even before. And the one thing that we always want to remember is, as children, we create things in our lives because this is how we are learning, because this is how we are sometimes protecting ourselves. So we create that some sort of a shield, like, for example, for me, if I love for me was always connected to not being taken care of, or being taken care of with, at the same time, being emotionally abused or physically abused or verbally abused or mentally abused, all kinds of abuse. Abuse was important. So I did two things. I became that person who would not feel love unless there are all these associated with that love. And I did another thing, which is I shielded myself. I kind of protected myself by becoming someone who would always find their way out of a relationship, because my belief of the relationship is always connected to abuse was not like, as a grown-up, it wasn't what I wanted in my life. I did not want to be always in that place. I did not want to be always, having love associated with abuse, or having love associated with inferiority, and always being someone who is like pleasing everyone and always worrying about everybody else's well-being and ignoring their own. So what I did is I also shielded myself. So I would never allow a relationship to become something even more, or to become that place where I can feel safe, because I never felt safe because of all the conditioning that I've had as a kid. So for me, it was always difficult to get out of that place. And this is how much our childhood affects our adulthood. As children, for example, it's important to understand that what we create as a kid is for us to be able to go through the things that we go through. So no matter what we create, like, for example, if I'm always feeling abused by my mom, let's say, I would be that person who would shy away and who would, become a bit of an introvert. So I created this so that I protect myself, so that I am distant from her abuse. I'm distant from her words, kind of put myself in the corner so that I don't get affected. And me putting, believe it or not, this person was, or even is, an introvert on some level, but I created this for myself because this was my way of protecting myself from her, from the abuse, from the bad words, from the hitting even, So I created that for me to protect me. And that protection, I needed that protection when I was under her roof, or when I was still considered under her protection, one way or another. So that thing that I created for myself, I took it with me, and I took it with me all the way through my adulthood. And all the way through my adulthood, I was always in that place where I would, seclude myself, and I sit on the side, and I don't talk, and I keep things for myself, and I get hurt without telling the other person or the other party that, hey, you're hurting me. Hey, what you're doing is not fair. Or, hey, what you're doing is really affecting me in a negative way. And it's not nice, and it's not good. I never used to be that person. I always used to, become, okay, I will sit on the side and I will not do anything about it. Another thing that I remember picking up from my childhood is, because my mom would always play the victim, always, like nonstop. It's always about, like, something is happening to her, like they did that to me, and my friends did that to me, or my husband's family did that to me, or they treated me this way. It was like she was always the victim in everything that was happening around her. And when I started working on myself, I realized that I was doing the same thing, because this is how much I was carrying from my childhood throughout all my adulthood until I put a stop and an end to it. It has been always there. That's why I would feel so sensitive. And that's why I would feel it was like everybody, if anyone says anything, whether it's related to me or not, it would always be related to me. In my mind, this is how I would see it. In my mind, I would think, oh, they're talking about me. Oh, what do they mean? Why are they saying that about me? Or why are they doing this to me? Or why is this happening to me? I was that person. I was always asking myself those questions until I realized that, oh my God, I am carrying this because this is how I was raised, because this is what I was raised with. These are these are the things that my parents used to say to me. My mom used to say to, not necessarily to me, my mom used to say this like to everyone in her life. And as a child, remember that tabula rasa, I was just absorbing all of this. I was just taking that in as if this is the right thing to have, and this is the right thing to be with or to continue my life with. And this is how much everything that I go through is in my life was really that I went through in my life was really related to so many things that I carried on with me from my childhood. Even if I want to go further, or even like if I want to broaden the spectrum from just the fact of how I was living my life inside my own house, if I even go broader and talk about my relationships, let's say with my cousins, and how, you know, as children, that kind of comparison used to play, that kind of, you know, that my grandparents, let's say, would favor that cousin and that cousin, and they would look at me differently, or, you know, and it's, these are things as a kid we don't really have the know-how to discern, you know, and to understand that I shouldn't be thinking this way because that's not really how it is, or I shouldn't be thinking this way. Because as a child, all that we do is we just observe. And from this observation, we have our own deductions. We do our own math, which is the math of a child, basically. And we put 1 + 1 = 2, which is like the simple 1 + 1 = 2, which is not necessarily the truth. But that's what we are seeing. And there's nobody there telling us otherwise. There's nobody there teaching us differently. So we kind of have to do it ourselves. We kind of have to understand things ourselves. Like, I don't remember as a child being told that, hey, this is the way love should look like, or this is the way a human relationship should look like between one person and another. I don't remember anyone ever telling me anything like that. Not at home, not among friends, and certainly not at school. So I had to learn all of this on my own. And I'm pretty sure that every single one of you out there had to learn all of these things on their own. And we ended up learning from what we have available to us. But what was available to us weren't necessarily the right tools. They weren't necessarily the right things that we needed to learn. We needed to learn them at one point in time, maybe to help us at that point in time. But then when we develop, that point in time is no longer there. That need has gone. It's disappeared. And yet we are still living that sort of life. So that's why it's always very important when we are working on ourselves to remember why we initially created whatever we created and whatever we are going through today. Why did we do it? There's a reason why we did it. And for example, for me, when I understood why I created my introversy, I realized that, okay, I needed it then. I needed to shield myself then, but I don't need this anymore. It's now, it's not making me feel better. It's actually hurting me. It's not allowing me to develop. So should I stay with it just because it's there, just because I've inherited, not inherited it, but because I've taken it with me from my childhood. I've absorbed it then and I've learned it then. And it was my way then, it was my security then, but it's no longer my security. Should I keep on carrying it with me? That's the big question that we want to ask ourselves. It's true that our childhood has got a lot of effects on our adulthood. Not just now, everything that we've been through as adults is related to those 4 or 5 or 6 years of our life as a child, where we are absorbing everything that is happening around us, where we are learning from the people who are our role models. These people are the people we look up to. So whatever they do is right. As a kid, we don't question what they do. We don't question the things that they put us through, because for us as kids, we think this is the right way. And growing up thinking that this is the right way is what brings us to a point where we find ourselves doing a lot of mistakes. We find ourselves always repeating the same mistakes, because that's how I figured it out. I figured out that, I have to work on the things that I have been through as a child, because I keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I keep on getting hurt the same way by people who look exactly like either my mom or my dad, whether they are friends or lovers, it doesn't matter. The end result is the same. The end result is the same. So I realized that I was doing this, and I realized that those mistakes are being repeated over and over and over again. And that was like that was my wake-up call. Like, hey, Maysoon, hang on. What's happening there? Why do you keep on bringing these people to your life? Why do you keep on allowing something like this to happen in your life? What are you trying to get out of it? What do you want? And when I started asking myself these big questions, I realized that it's not really what I want now. It's not really why I'm not really bringing these people into my life now because there's something that I want now. It's because this is what I know. It's because this is how I was raised. It's because this is all I know about interpersonal relationships, because of the way I was raised with my own mother and my own father in my own house. I've been through all of this, and because of this, I thought that that's the proper way to do things. And when I started getting hurt over and over and over again, then that was the wake-up call. It's, hang on, let's see. Is this really how it should be? Or is there a way out of it? So it's true that we carry a lot of things with us from our childhood. It's true that we are conditioned from the age of 2 to 7 or 8. Everything that happens in between those 2 years and even before is something that we will find. Like today, if you sit with yourself, like I said at the beginning, if you want to do that exercise, if you sit with yourself and you ask yourself those big questions, you will start remembering things from that age. The things that you've been through, the things that you were subjected to, or the things that you play, the places that you put yourself in to learn specific things, or even to become that specific person who you are today. These points or these incidents will start coming to you, and you will start remembering them. And then when you remember them, you will think, oh, this is why I do this way. Now I understand. Excuse my dog. So you start thinking, oh, okay. So now I know that because of that very specific incident, for example, I am this person today. But that incident is gone. It's no longer here. It's no longer affecting my life. But why am I letting it? I'm letting it because I don't know. I'm letting it because I am blinded by so much conditioning throughout all my life experience until today. I didn't know. But now I know. And the minute that I start knowing, this is where that's like your turning point. This is the point where you start wanting to change. This is the point where you start really wanting to dig inside and understand where your limitations are and where are they coming from. And why do you have them? Why did you even create them at the very first place? Why did you even create them? So today, that's what you want to know. That's what you want to find out. That's what you want to look for. You want to look for patterns. You want to look for, and that's why, for example, for me, when I started realizing that I'm repeating the same mistake, it's exactly the same mistake. Just over and over and over and over again. You know, Einstein says insanity, the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. So that's insane, you know? And I was doing that. I was always repeating the same thing. And at the very end, I would always say, why is this happening to me? Why does this always keep happening to me? I used to say that all the time. I used to be that victim all the time. And I took that from my mom. Now I don't do it anymore. Of course, I don't do it anymore because I have worked so hard to get out of those. I have put myself over 2-3 years of like intensive work to get out of that pattern that I was having. So today I want to urge you, every single one of you who's watching this, to take a look at your life, like really sit back as if you are watching, you know, take a step back and sit and play that movie of your life in front of your eyes. Close your eyes and play that movie from the first thing that you remember as a child until today, and see what are the patterns, what are the things that you are doing all the time, and what are the results of those things. Now, if they are good, obviously, we want to keep them. But if you find the things like me, for example, that repetition, that mistake repetition that I found was, you know, impossible to ignore. I had to do something about it. I couldn't just let it go. I couldn't just let it be because it was ruining my life. Because I was doing the same thing, and I was literally every time I was ruining my life, and every time I was going backwards. I was never going forward. I was never moving forward. It was always something that was bringing me back and taking me down, let's say it this way, instead of me being the best version of who I am. And I know I am that person. I used to allow myself to be lower, or to be at a lower place in my life, just because I was afraid, just because I was like, what am I supposed to do? Oh, I did. I did a lot. I did so much work on my childhood. I did so much work, and there are other sessions where I speak about the mother wound and the father wound and the inner child wound. And if you want to watch those, you can find them somewhere in the guide and then ask for the replay. I'll send it to you. But I did all of this work. I did all of this work. And because I know that this is not, it's not something that anyone would want to gladly live with. Nobody wants to live with not knowing what love is. Nobody wants to live with being secluded from the world. Nobody wants to live with being afraid all the time. Nobody wants to live as a victim by choice. No one wants to do that by choice. We do that because this is how we have been conditioned throughout our life, starting from our childhood. And this is how our childhood affects every single thing that we go through as adults. Now, because I've been through all of this, and because I know how much it takes and how much work it takes to change this about one's life, especially about mine, what I did is, because I know all of this, and this is where my invitation is to you. What I did is I developed a whole program around all of this to help people who are just like me, or just like I was, to get out of those situations they are in their own lives. I put together something that, for years I've been working on myself just to figure things out. And instead of just figuring things out for myself and going on with my life, I thought, you know what? I should be able to share all of this with people. I shouldn't be keeping this for myself. I have tools that I can help people with. I don't want to keep them for me. I want to be able to be someone who can make a difference in other people's lives, because I know how important this was to me. So I know how important it will be to people who are going through the same thing. I know that if anyone is today going through those challenges that I was going through in my life a few years back, wondering, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to get out of that situation? How am I going to get out of that mistake repetition? How am I going to get out of me procrastinating all the time and keep on pushing things till later? I'll do it there. I'll do it later. I'll do it. Oh, I don't need to do it. There's something more important that I can work with. And that something more important never comes, or I never work on it. And then I figured it out. I did all the work. And like I said, I have the tools. And today, because I have the tools, I want to share them. What's important to me today is I don't want anyone who is going through what I was going through to get stuck, to stay stuck in that place. No. Why would I do that? If I have something that I can share that will make your life better, I am happy to share it, and I want to share it. And today, this is one of the things that I want to share with you. This is my invitation to you. If you feel like this information, or if you feel like you are that person who is always doing the same thing over and over and over again, and who feels like their childhood has got a lot to do with what they are going through as a grown-up today, but they don't know what to do about it, please reach out to me. I have so many answers for you. And I have so many tools that I can share with you, even on a first call that we can have together. And that's my invitation to you, is to book that call, is to get on that call with me and tell me what you're going through. Tell me about your current situation, and I'll give you the tools that will start, that will put you on the right track, that will start you up, you know? And on that call, I'll go through your situation. You will tell me everything about it. And I'll share with you some tools that will help you move from point A to point B, you know? And from there, if I find that you are the right fit and that I can really help you, I will actually show you how it will look like to work with me. And from that sharing, we will be together in a whole program that we can, you know, share, or that I can help you through to move from where you are today to where you want to be. So if this is appealing to you, and if you are that person who needs, or who, you know, wants to make that change for themselves and wants to become the best version they know they are, because you all are, we all are amazing people, sometimes with bad circumstances. So if you are that person and you are ready to move yourself from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow, remember, all you need to do is book a call with yours truly, and I'll go through that situation of yours. We'll see together what we can do. I'll give you the tools that you can start with. And I'll also, if we are the right fit, and if I feel like I definitely can help you, I will show you how it will look like to work with me. And then we will take it from there. So all you need to do, remember, just book that call. I will share a link under this video. And then tomorrow in the replay, I will also share that link. And all you need to do is get on that call with me, and we will take it from there. And with that, I hope that today's live was fruitful for you. And I hope that you took some notes and you're going to do those exercises to figure out where in your childhood everything started. And with that, I'm going to say ciao, ciao, and I'll see you again next week. Ciao, ciao.